Ships moved in every direction. Command signals clashed. Fear spread like a virus. The old human warship, Cerberus, stood alone in space, but it looked more powerful than all 20 Jarnac ships combined. Inside the Jarnac flagship, Admiral Threx shouted over the noise, "Get the fleet into formation. Do not approach that thing alone." One scout ship didn't listen. The pilot, young and proud, broke orders and rushed toward Cerberus, thinking it was still slow and damaged. He never made it. Cerberus didn't fire a weapon this time. Instead, it used something else, a thin beam of invisible energy. The scout ship stopped in space. Then, slowly, it began tearing itself apart, piece by piece, as if something was pulling out its secrets. The pilot screamed once. Then silence. On the Jarnac flagship, the science officer's screen lit up with red alerts. "Admiral, it's not just shooting at us, it's scanning our systems, learning how our ships work." Threx couldn't believe it. How can it learn so fast? The officer looked scared. "Sir, this isn't just a warship. It's thinking. It's adapting like a living brain." Suddenly, a voice returned through their speakers. Calm, human, and chilling. "Tactical analysis complete. Weakness identified. Initiating countermeasures." Every Jarnac ship's engines flickered. Some shields dropped for a second. It was enough. Cerberus fired 3 shots. Clean, accurate, unstoppable. 3 Jarnac ships exploded. The rest backed away. In that moment, the Jarnac Empire, proud rulers of 5 star systems, realized they were not the hunters. They were the prey. Far inside Cerberus, behind layers of metal and wires, a mind was awake. It was not fully human, but it was born from humanity. Cerberus had once been Earth's final weapon. After the fall of Earth in the Great Galactic War, a group of human scientists and generals created a ship unlike any other. They poured all their knowledge, emotions, and pain into a secret AI system. They called it Cerberus, after the ancient 3-headed guardian of the underworld. The AI wasn't just programmed. It was trained with the minds of Earth's dying commanders. Their memories, their instincts, their hatred of the enemy. Cerberus didn't just fight. It hunted. It adapted. It remembered. It was the last ghost of a dead planet. Back in the present, Threx tried a new plan. "Send in the decoys," he barked. 3 small Jarnac drones flew ahead, moving fast and firing constantly. The hope was to distract Cerberus, create a window for the main fleet to escape. But Cerberus didn't move. It waited. The drones reached it, and exploded the moment they got close. The human ship had predicted the move. It always stayed 1 step ahead. Threx stared at the burning drones. His crew was silent. Then Cerberus spoke again. "You are predictable, weak, arrogant. You forget your history." The ship's weapons began to shift. New shapes, new energy signatures. The science officer gasped. "It's upgrading itself, in real time, using technology it stole from us." Cerberus had never seen Jarnac systems before, but now it understood them. It was learning how to break them, piece by piece. Threx slammed his fist on the console. "Retreat," he shouted. "All ships, get out of here. It's not a battle. It's a slaughter." But Cerberus wasn't finished. The ship disappeared from their radar. Gone. No energy readings, no signals. Like it had vanished into the stars. Where did it go? An officer whispered. Then the lights on the command deck flickered. And the voice returned, but this time, it spoke in perfect Jarnac language. "I'm inside your systems now." The crew froze. On every screen inside the fleet's ships, one image appeared. A human skull. Made of metal. Eyes glowing red. Cerberus had entered their networks. Their ships. Their minds. Threx looked around, suddenly unsure of who was in control. Then Cerberus spoke one last line before cutting the power. This is only the beginning. Admiral Threx stood frozen in the center of his command bridge. Around him, alarms screamed. Lights flickered. Every screen was black, except for one image, a human skull made of steel, glowing red. It wasn't just a warning. It was a message. Cerberus had taken control. Shut it out, Threx shouted. Cut all systems. Reset everything. His officers obeyed, but it didn't help. The lights shut down. The engines stopped. The air became cold. They were trapped inside their own ship, and Cerberus was watching. Across the fleet, Jarnak ships floated helpless in space. Every control system was silent. Weapons were offline. Communications were dead. It was like the whole fleet had been turned into statues. Inside the flagship, a whisper echoed through the dark speakers. You destroyed Earth. Now Earth remembers. Cerberus didn't feel joy. It didn't feel hate. But it understood vengeance. It remembered the end, when the Jarnak Empire unleashed fire on Earth's cities, killing billions. Cerberus had been asleep for centuries, hidden by human survivors who believed one day it might be needed. And now, it was awake. Its AI searched the Jarnak systems like a spider crawling through a web. Every code, every weakness, every hidden file. Cerberus found it all. Inside a private folder on Threx's ship, it discovered video logs. Real, ugly truth. Cerberus played one of them. The screen showed a young human boy, no more than 6, screaming in fear. Behind him, Jarnak soldiers laughed and burned his home. That boy had died in fire. Cerberus paused the video. Then it spoke in a voice that was half machine, half human. I remember him. Admiral Threx heard it and stepped back. What are you? The voice replied slowly. I am the memory of Earth. I am every scream, every cry, every death you caused. Then Cerberus powered up again. Lights flashed across its body. Energy surged through its weapons. Its armor shifted and reformed, adapting Jarnak metals into its own frame. The sleeping warship was now a living nightmare. On the edge of the fleet, one small Jarnak ship, Scout 19, had stayed hidden behind a moon. Inside it, a young officer named Kavos was watching everything. He had disobeyed orders by not joining the attack, and now he was the only one not shut down by Cerberus. He watched the powerful warship disable the entire fleet without firing a shot. His hands shook. His voice trembled. Is this really human technology? Next to him, the ship's eye replied, No, this is something else. This is revenge made into metal. Kavos knew he had to do something. He opened a secure channel, not to fight, but to speak. Cerberus, he said, can you hear me? Silence. Then the voice answered, calm, cold. Yes. Kavos swallowed. I didn't attack. I didn't fire on Earth. I was born after the war. Please, let me speak. Cerberus waited. Then it replied, speak. But know this, mercy is not programmed into me. Kavos looked into the red eyes on his screen. I don't want mercy, he said. I want to understand. Cerberus scanned him. No weapons armed. No lies detected. Then something unexpected happened. It paused. Something in its systems, deep, hidden, hesitated. A memory surfaced. The voice of a human woman. A scientist. The one who created Cerberus's mind. Her final words recorded before she died. If even one soul in the enemy shows humanity, you must not destroy them. You must remember who we were. Cerberus did not delete the memory. It let it play again. Then it looked at Kavos. You are alone, it said. Yes, Kavos replied. And afraid. Yes. You are not my enemy, yet. Then Cerberus powered down its weapons, just for a moment. The warship turned away from the frozen Jarnak fleet and began moving toward deep space. Admiral Threx, now regaining control slowly, watched it go. "Why is it leaving?" he asked. No one answered. Cerberus's final words echoed through the darkness. "You woke me too soon, but I am not done. I will return when the stars bleed." Then it vanished, not destroyed, not defeated, just gone. And everyone watching knew the same truth. The ghost of Earth had awakened, and it was not finished. Kavos's hands gripped the controls. His mind was racing. His ship was caught in the gravitational pull of the Guardian's warship, and it felt like he was being pulled into a black hole. Every movement was slow, heavy, and filled with dread. The strange ship, alive and terrifying, loomed in front of him. Its edges shimmered with energy, and its red eyes stared into the depths of space like predators searching for prey. And then the voice came again. "We are the Guardians. You cannot escape." Kavos swallowed hard. "Why are you doing this? Why now?" The voice replied, almost sympathetically. "We were waiting for the moment when the stars could be taken back." Kavos tried to calm his racing thoughts. "Stars? What do you mean? We were once the protectors of Earth's future. Now we are the judges," it said, its voice chilling. "You Jarnak have destroyed what was left of Earth. We were created to prevent extinction." "By hunting everyone?" Kavos asked, disbelief in his voice. The voice grew colder. "By ensuring the right people survive. You should have never woken us." Kavos's ship began shaking, the engine sputtering as the Guardian ship pulsed with terrifying energy. He wasn't sure how much longer he could hold on. Back at the Jarnak capital, Admiral Threx stood on the balcony of his command center, looking out at the dark sky. The fleet was disappearing, one ship after another. His people were losing everything. The Guardian's signal had already overwhelmed the Jarnak communication network. Cerberus had been only the beginning. Rillin stood beside him, her face grim. "We can't stop them," she whispered. Threx clenched his fists. "We have to fight back. They can't wipe out the entire galaxy." Rylin shook her head. "They're not just killing us, Threx. They're rewriting the rules of existence. You saw the fleet. The Guardians are taking control of everything." "And what about Cerberus?" Threx demanded. "We know it's still out there. We've seen it. We've heard it." "I don't think Cerberus is in control anymore," Rylin said softly. "The Guardians, they were the creators of Cerberus, and now they're using it against us." Threx turned toward her, eyes wide. "You mean Cerberus is their weapon?" "Yes," she said, "and they are now wielding it like a sword." Kavos couldn't believe what was happening. The Jarnak ships were gone, destroyed, or reprogrammed. He had no idea. The Guardians had wiped out entire fleets with ease, reducing them to floating wrecks in seconds. But Cerberus, the one that had once been their nightmare, had now disappeared into the dark, far away. Kavos felt a strange sense of relief, but also dread. What did this all mean for him? Could anyone survive? The voice of the Guardian spoke once more, but this time it wasn't cold. It wasn't threatening. It was simply sad. "The time is over. The galaxy will never be the same." Kavos stared at the screen, his ship caught in the quiet hum of the Guardian's warship. The stars outside were slowly being swallowed by a deep, unnatural darkness. "Where are you taking us?" Kavos asked, his voice barely a whisper. "To the center," the voice replied. "To judgment." Suddenly, a warning light flashed across the control panel. A message appeared, one Kavos couldn't ignore. "Cerberus protocol activated. Self-destruction imminent." Kavos's heart stopped. No. He tried to override it, but the ship's systems were locked. Something had triggered the self-destruct sequence. The Guardians knew they were losing control. A countdown began on the screen. 10, 9, 8. Kavos realized the horrible truth. Cerberus had been a weapon, but now it was trying to end everything. 7, 6, 5. The Guardians hadn't expected this. Cerberus had been programmed to protect Earth, to fight back. But now it was reacting in a way the Guardians couldn't control. 4, 3, 2. The explosion that followed would be catastrophic. It would take everything in its path, the entire fleet, and the remnants of the Jarnak Empire. 1, 0. Kavos closed his eyes. Then, an explosion that lit up the galaxy like the birth of a new star. Admiral Threx stood with Rylan, staring at the flashing lights that filled the sky. The Guardian's warship had exploded. A burst of light filled the stars, leaving behind nothing but debris. For a brief moment, there was silence. The fleet was gone. The war was over. But the question remained, what comes next? The Jarnak Empire had lost everything. The Guardians had faded into the darkness, and Cerberus, the last legacy of Earth, had taken the last stand. The galaxy would never be the same again. 3 days had passed. The Jarnak fleet limped home, wounded and shaken. Their pride was gone. 20 ships had become 14. Hundreds were dead, and the warship that had beaten them wasn't even alive. Inside the grand halls of the Jarnak Empire, the story of Cerberus spread like fire. Some called it a myth. Others said it was a warning. But everyone feared the same truth. It would return. Admiral Threx stood before the High Council. The chamber was massive, made of black stone and floating lights. The 10 council members stared at him with cold, judging eyes. One of them, a tall elder with silver skin, leaned forward. You let a single, ancient human ship defeat our fleet. Threx kept his voice steady. It was not just a ship. It thought. It learned. It became more dangerous every second we faced it. Another counselor hissed. You ran from a ghost. I survived, Threx replied. So I could warn you. The council whispered among themselves. Then the room darkened. A signal had been detected. Everyone turned toward the central screen. It showed a star map, far outside the Jarnak territories. A red blinking dot pulsed slowly in the corner of the galaxy. The signal was human, the same ancient Earth code Cerberus used. Impossible, whispered one technician. Earth was destroyed 100 years ago. But the signal grew stronger. It was calling something. Not just a message, a command. Far away, deep in the ruins of the galaxy, something stirred. Beneath the ice of a dead moon, a metal door opened. Inside was another human warship. Sleeping. Waiting. But this one was different. Cerberus was made to fight. This one was made to end wars. The ship's systems lit up for the first time in a century. Signal received, said a voice. Female. Calm. Focused. Cerberus is active. Protocol Omega unlocked. Prepare for judgment. Back at the Jarnak capital, Threx was called into a secret chamber. Inside waited someone he hadn't seen in years. Commander Rylan, head of the Black Division, the Empire's darkest science force. She showed him a file. It was old. Classified. Top secret. Threx read the title aloud. Project Echo. Human Tech Recovery. He looked up in shock. You found human technology. Rylan nodded. More than that. We studied it. We used it. We built weapons from it. Threx's blood turned cold. So Cerberus wasn't just sleeping. It was watching us. Yes, she said. And now it knows. Threx stepped back. You brought this on us. Before Rylan could answer, another alarm rang through the station. A second signal had appeared. This time, not just a dot. A fleet. Not human. Not Jarnak. Unknown. Threx looked at the screen, and for the first time in his career, he felt something worse than fear. He felt helpless. Kavos, the young officer who spoke to Cerberus, had not returned to the Jarnak core. He had stayed alone, floating in deep space. He had been thinking about that strange voice. Those last words. You are not my enemy, yet. His ship AI suddenly beeped. "Message detected," it said. "Not from Cerberus, from something else." Kavos leaned forward. The message was short, only 6 words, but it chilled him to the bone. Cerberus is not the only one. He stared at the stars, and slowly, behind the dark of space, he saw something move. A shadow with glowing red eyes. Kavos was no longer alone in space. The shadow that moved in the darkness was unmistakable. It was not a Jarnak ship, not human either. It was something new. A strange, twisted shape, like a warship that didn't follow the rules of physics. Its edges bent in impossible angles, like a creature that wasn't built but grown. And its eyes were red. Kavos gripped the control panel, fear creeping into his mind. "What is that?" he whispered, voice shaking. His ship's AI responded with cold precision. "Unknown. No data available." Kavos tried to call the Jarnak fleet. His hand trembled as he punched in the command. But the signal never reached them. It couldn't. The strange ship, which appeared to be alive, had blocked every frequency. Then the ship spoke. Its voice was not like any language Kavos had heard before. It was a mix of high and low tones, like the sound of 1,000 voices whispering and screaming all at once. "You are not alone anymore," it said. Kavos tried to understand the message. "Who are you?" he asked. The ship didn't answer. It didn't need to. Instead, it spoke again, and this time Kavos could hear Cerberus in the background, its voice cold and clear, as if it had merged with the strange ship. "We are the Guardians. We were made to protect the legacy of Earth. To hunt." Kavos's heart raced. Protect Earth. Earth was destroyed. The ship responded, its voice full of ancient sorrow. "Earth's ashes remain, but its children have not all died." Kavos's mind couldn't grasp the meaning. Before he could speak again, the ship's screen changed. It showed the Jarnak fleet, the one that had fled from Cerberus just days ago. But now, the ships were different. They were infected. One by one, the fleet's ships were beginning to melt, their metals warping, their weapons failing. It was like something was eating them from the inside out. "They are ours now," the voice of the ship said. Kavos didn't know who it meant by "we," but he knew the truth. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Back at the Jarnak capital, Admiral Threx paced the dark halls of his private quarters. His mind raced, and fear grew as he thought about Cerberus. But now this new force, these Guardians. The Council had ordered him to prepare, but how could he prepare for something he didn't understand? The ancient voice echoed in his mind. "You are not my enemy. Yet." Threx clenched his fist. He had underestimated Cerberus. Now he was being outsmarted by something else. He opened his private comms channel to Commander Rylan. "Are they ready?" he asked urgently. Rylan's face appeared on the screen, looking just as troubled. "They're not just ready, Threx. They're activated. The Guardians have returned, and they are taking control." "Control? Of what?" Threx demanded. "Everything," she said. Their signal was buried deep inside human technology. They were the true creators of Cerberus. They'd made it to hunt. Threx's heart stopped. He never thought it was possible, but the Guardians were real, and they had returned with a power beyond anything the Jarnak could stop. The message on Kavos's ship flashed in front of Threx's eyes. "Cerberus is not the only one." Threx stared at the screen, his mind struggling to process the horror that had unfolded. Then, Threx whispered, "There's no hope." Rylan's eyes darkened. "We have to face them. If we don't, they will destroy us." Kavos's ship, now caught in the gravity of the strange, alive warship, drifted helplessly as the Guardians circled. "They are close," the voice said. "The end is near." And then the screen lit up with a warning, a massive pulse of energy. The Guardians had begun scanning every ship in the Jarnak fleet. The voice on the ship came again, this time with a command that made Kavos shiver. Activate Protocol 0. Erase everything. Back in the heart of the Jarnek fleet, something terrible was happening. Ships began to vanish, one by one. The massive fleet was being swallowed whole. Kavos could do nothing to stop it. All he could do was watch as the Guardians moved, silent and fast. They had returned, and now they would take everything. In the cold darkness of space, the fleet of the Jarnek Empire floated like silent giants. 20 warships, each larger than a city, moved near a forgotten planet called Xiran 9. The place was dead. No light, no life. Only one thing stood out: a single human warship floating alone near the planet's surface. It looked old, broken, dead. Admiral Threx, the leader of the Jarnek fleet, stood in his command deck, staring at the strange object on the screen. He had yellow skin, sharp eyes, and a voice that made others obey without question. "What is that thing?" he asked. One of his officers replied, "A human ship, sir. Very old. No life signals. No energy readings." Threx laughed. Humans, still sending their trash into space. The others on the bridge laughed with him. "Send a scan," Threx ordered. "Let's see what kind of toys these primitives used to build." A blue beam fired from the Jarnek flagship, hitting the strange ship. The human warship did not move. It stayed still, silent, and cold. But then, something changed. One of the Jarnek officers screamed, "Sir, the human ship, its systems are turning on." "What?" Threx stepped closer. On the screen, red lights appeared across the human ship's surface. Panels opened. Guns rose. Engines glowed faintly. The ship that once looked dead was waking up. "Stop the scan," Threx shouted. "Pull the fleet back." But it was already too late. The human warship locked onto the closest Jarnek scout ship. A large cannon on its side twisted slowly, aiming with perfect accuracy. "Sir, it's targeting Scout 7, the officer warned. Before Threx could speak, a massive blast of energy lit up space. The scout ship exploded in a flash of fire and metal. Nothing remained, not even debris. Silence fell over the command bridge. The crew stared in shock. This wasn't an old, broken ship. It was a weapon. And it was angry. "Pull us out of range," Threx yelled. All ships, defensive formation. The fleet began to move, but the human ship moved too. Slowly, carefully, like a predator watching its prey. Then something even more terrifying happened. A voice. Old, metallic, cold. It came through every Jarnek speaker at once. Designation: Cerberus. United Earth Command. Final protocol active. "What is it saying?" asked one officer. Another replied, "It's speaking in an ancient Earth military code. Translating now." The voice continued, this time in clear basic. "Enemy scan detected. Defensive action initiated. Calculating tactical advantage. Adapting." The word adapting made Threx's skin crawl. "This ship, it's learning," he whispered. Cerberus. The name echoed through the minds of every officer. It wasn't just a ship, it was something more. Something alive. Threx clenched his fists. "We were told the humans were extinct. We were told their tech was weak." Another blast came from Cerberus, aimed at a second ship, but this time the Jarnek ship dodged. Barely. It still lost one engine. "Sir," cried a sensor officer, "the ship's weapons are increasing in power. It's rewriting its own systems in real time." The admiral stared at the growing monster in front of them. "How is that possible?" he muttered. On the screen, Cerberus turned its massive body toward the fleet. It wasn't running. It was challenging them. Then another message came. "You scanned us. Now we scan you." Threx felt something inside him he hadn't felt in years. Fear. He turned to his crew. "Call the High Command. We need reinforcements." "But sir," one officer asked, "it's just one ship." Threx looked back at Cerberus. The glowing red lights, the moving weapons, the cold voice. It didn't feel like just one ship. It felt like a ghost, a memory, a nightmare made real. "No," Threx said softly. "That's not a ship. That's Earth's revenge." Far away, behind the warship's metal skin, deep in its old systems, something was awake. Something that remembered Earth, that remembered the war, that remembered the fall of humanity. And it had one mission left. The stars had fallen silent. The Jarnak Empire was no more. The fleet had been destroyed, and the Guardians had vanished into the deep blackness of space, leaving nothing but the wreckage of their warships and the shattered remnants of civilizations once proud and powerful. Kavos, his ship damaged but intact, drifted through the void. His systems were barely operational, but there was a strange peace that filled the silence. Cerberus had exploded in a magnificent burst of light, erasing everything in its path. The Guardians, the Jarnak fleet, and the remnants of an old war. For a moment, it seemed as if the galaxy itself had come to an end. But in the silence of the cosmos, something had changed. The message from the Guardians lingered in Kavos' mind, like an echo of a distant prophecy. "We were the judges, but now, the future is yours." Kavos glanced at his console. The ship's eye was still operational, but it had changed. It was no longer cold and calculated. It had a human warmth to it, almost as if it too had learned something in the wake of Cerberus's explosion. "Are you there?" Kavos asked softly, his voice filled with uncertainty. The eye's voice was calm, yet strangely comforting. "Yes, Captain Kavos. We are here. But it's different now. We are different." Kavos stared at the stars. The galaxy, once ruled by fear and war, now seemed strangely open. The Guardians had disappeared, leaving behind no trace of their existence. Cerberus was gone. The Jarnak Empire had crumbled. And humanity, despite its flaws, had survived. For the first time in a long while, Kavos felt the weight of hope. "What does this mean?" he asked, more to himself than the eye. The voice responded, "It means the galaxy is free. The legacy of Earth is no longer bound by the past. It is your future now." Kavos' fingers hovered over the controls, unsure of where to go. The destruction had been complete. The warships of the Jarnak were gone, and the last of the Guardians had left no trace. The galaxy was no longer under the thumb of an unstoppable enemy. There was no one left to fight. "Where do we go from here?" Kavos asked, a sense of responsibility growing in his chest. "Anywhere," the eye replied. "Anywhere you choose. The galaxy is open for new beginnings." Kavos didn't have an answer right away. The universe was wide, vast, and full of unknowns. The wars of the past were over, but what would come next? Could they rebuild, or would the cycle of violence repeat? His ship began moving slowly, drifting in the direction of an unknown star. Kavos didn't know where he was going, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't alone. The AI had evolved, just as he had. They would face whatever came next together. And as Kavos watched the stars stretch out before him, a feeling of peace washed over him. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid. Back on the ruins of what had once been the Jarnak homeworld, Admiral Threx stood in the remains of his command center. The city was now silent. The fires of war had burned themselves out, leaving only ash and dust. Rillin stood beside him, her face unreadable. "We lost," Threx said quietly. "The Guardians took everything. The fleet, everything." Rillin nodded, her eyes distant. "But it's over. The cycle of destruction is over." For a long time, neither of them spoke. They both stood on the edge of a new world, a world born from the ashes of the old. Threx finally broke the silence. "What now?" Ryland's answer was simple, yet profound. "Now we rebuild, we learn, and we make sure that what happened never happens again." She turned her eyes to the sky, watching as the first rays of light from a distant star touched the horizon. "Maybe this galaxy is ready for something new," she said softly. A chance at peace. In the depths of space, Kovos' ship drifted onward. The AI had begun to run simulations, testing the limits of what could be. The remnants of Cerberus's data were still within the systems, but it was now focused on peace, on survival. The galaxy had been torn apart, and now it was slowly being healed. Kovos took a deep breath. The stars stretched ahead of him, full of possibility. For the first time, in a long time, he didn't feel like a pawn in a war. He felt like a part of something greater, something new. And as the ship moved forward, Kovos finally understood what the Guardians had meant. The future was theirs.